Welcome to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Reed Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at MarketSurge.
AI isn't coming from marketing, it's already in the brainstorm. But here's the real question. Is AI replacing creative strategy or redefining it? Today on Inside Marketing with MarketSurge, I'm joined by Ray Jang, the founder and CEO of Atria, the world's first AI creative strategist platform. Ray is building something wild, an AI system designed not just to generate content, but to think strategically about it. With experience at TikTok and deep expertise in AI and machine learning for marketing, Ray sits at the intersection of data, creativity, and what's coming next. We're diving into what AI actually means for creative teams, whether human creatives are evolving or becoming obsolete, and what the next 3 to 5 years of marketing look like if AI becomes your co-strategist. If you're a founder, CMO, creative director, or just trying to survive the AI wave, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Ray, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you. For people who haven't heard of Atria, what exactly is an AI creative strategist? And maybe give us a little background behind the product and the company.
Yeah, 100%. So Atria is an end-to-end AI creative strategist. And what that means is we analyze all your Meta, TikTok, YouTube ads, understand where to make strategic bets based on everything that we're seeing internally and the way the algorithms reward strategic bets. And then we help to launch those ads for you in terms of images first and then video later in the year. Atria was founded after I left TikTok. At TikTok, I got used to winning and I thought, oh, it must be pretty easy to launch and run a successful company. Always much easier said than done when looking from the outside in. Once I left, I worked on my first company, which kind of went nowhere for about 2.5 years, and we couldn't figure out our growth problems. So with 3 months of runway, we decided to do a Hail Mary, being like, hey, let's actually try and solve this growth problem for ourselves and, by virtue of doing it, help others along the way. And it turned out a lot of people truly struggle with launching winning ads. I think fundamentally what is shifted is for every dollar you put in, you could, usually get $3 back in the earlier days. These days, if you have a winning formula, it gets fatigued very quickly. And it goes both ways. It's been easier for advertisers to launch ads more iteratively with the leverage of AI. But even more so, what the algorithm has done to counteract that is to ensure that they reward original content. And then they also ensure that the shelf life of each content doesn't run as long so that the algorithm cycles through only the best and highest quality content. So that's why a tool or a platform more so like Atria is needed, because it genuinely requires a lot more velocity, and then more so within that velocity, a lot more distinct and diverse ads to truly perform in these Meta, TikTok, and YouTube platforms.
So from your experience at TikTok, what did you see about, I think you highlighted a couple things, originality is really featured and preferred and novelty. Are there any other insights you have from your time at TikTok that maybe brands don't really understand the same way? Like, were there decisions being made at TikTok deliberate to favor certain creatives over others besides that?
So sorry, the question is like, what were brands not doing, or?
Well, what do they maybe not realize that they wouldn't have from not having worked on the platform side?
Yeah, so I think fundamentally what I've observed is TikTok was really, really good at educating their customers and really giving them the playbook to succeed, right? And they really invested in these partnerships. And that's why TikTok became the #1 social platform, just by their partnership. But among several things, one of which is like creating a very good partnership ecosystem. That said, it was really interesting to often see that even when the playbook was provided, everyone was looking for the 80/20, the shortcuts, how do I just keep whatever I have without having to invest more, right? And so now that I'm on the other side and I'm looking at how the top 0.1% brands, they differentiate themselves from the rest of the market, is a relentless investment into trying new things, holding every idea as an idea that can die tomorrow, and then rigorously testing for both what would appeal to existing and new audiences, right? So there's always, so I find that the best brands almost aim to perform on a kind of scientific level of rigor in terms of understanding their data, but they also bring this kind of like net new white space artistic kind of approach to like their ideas, and that is really really difficult to pull off, because if you tend to have a very data driven team, everything gets analyzed under a microscope, right? And everything is really tabularized to be like, okay, if A led to B, then we need to do more of A, right? And then the artistic team, they tend to be more touchy feely. They might be very good at brand stuff, but then when it comes to analyzing the data, they don't even know what the learnings are. And so because of these two kind of gaps that don't often overlap in the rest of the 99.9% of the market, that's who we're also enabling, right? While the 0.1% are actually growing even faster as a result of Atria, because they're like, wow, we're able to compound our learnings even more because we're already doing this really well. We're also able to democratize some of that DNA to teams that don't have both sides. So, for example, what Raya is, our creative strategy agent, is essentially processes all of your data, and it's giving in real time recommendations on what is most likely going to lift performance in terms of your ads. So that's the more like rigorous scientific approach. And the reason why we're able to do this, Reed, is because we've processed more than 5.3 billion in ad spend, right? Specifically on Meta. So this gives us the informational understanding and access to understand what's more likely to perform. And then on the flip side, in terms of the more spontaneous, artistic, more original white space standpoint, AI is less biased, right? It does not hold dear to, they have less emotional attachment to their ideas, which often,
Right.
is our strength and our weaknesses as humans. And so, with these two combined, what we're essentially creating is more an engineered approach to marketing. And this is what is being required by the market because, fundamentally each unit on an ad is so competitive that only the very best survive.
Okay. So to what extent are analyzing creative has always been tricky, because there's so much art to it and so much subtlety and nuance. Like, to what degree are your agents in Atria analyzing the actual creative ads?
Yes.
Like, are they analyzing like the skin color, the facial expression, how deep does it go?
Yeah. So we look at it from two components. There is the components of what make an image or video ad and what generally is so for example in a video ad, the hook, right, the first 3 seconds in a video, or the call to action, these elements are viewed in terms of both the hook, each of these elements itself, while also looking at the data that corresponds with the performance. Yeah, so this is one aspect that we're looking at it. The other that is really what has been amazing is that the cost for computer vision has significantly gone down, such that we can analyze not only images, but videos frame by frame, right? Because a video is essentially hundreds of thousands of frames composed into one, right? And so what our AI is doing in real time is that it will process each of these ads, look at the components of what will most likely score it to perform great. So we have this algorithm called radar, and it's like getting homework, like, from a score A to D. right? And if your hook is a D, then we'll give you specific recommendations on how to make that a better hook based on all the different hooks that we've seen inside our system that have received an A. And we will also go in a layer deeper so that it's a more bottom-up approach to say, hey, these are the specific things we're picking up based on the way the persona or the transcript or the background is coming up, right? So this used to be hours and hours of ends of work, right, for one creative strategist to do. But now our real goal is to provide a very, very helpful teammate to each of these creative strategists so that their units of time is extremely leveraged, right? So it's not that we're here to replace creative strategists. It's more how do we ensure that better and smarter decisions are made by creative strategists, and most of the manual operation works kind of get compressed through the agent doing that on behalf of the customer.
Okay. Now, to what degree? So, I'm a AI user, use it for a lot of things marketing related, and I have a few custom GPTs for different contexts or different situations. In some cases, I'll make a custom GPT for a specific client that we're doing a lot of deep work with. Now, to
Right.
what extent is your platform learning from the client or learning from the project? Is that, or do you avoid that because you're pulling from the billions of dollars spent and the experience and trying to bring people to best practices? Where's the balance there?
Yeah, so we deeply care about what queries and the quality of answer that we provide for said queries for our customers. So, meaning our learning loop really focuses on, hey, what is it truly that the customers consistently on a high frequency basis care about, so that we can get closer and closer to actually delivering the right response, right? So that's from that standpoint, we care a lot about what the customers are inquiring and receiving answers on. I would say the hard part is genuinely understanding how right? I think the shortcuts to this is like the thumbs up, thumbs down, or or like ambiently to be able to observe how often they return back to ask more queries. But this is the hard part, right? Where we need to do a combination of qualitative and quantitative like understanding to see if our agent is improving. However, like I think what we're seeing is that most marketers, if not all, really do prefer an agentic experience to learning about how their ads are performing rather than a dashboard oriented way of doing it. Let me just be very, very clear here. No one went into marketing because they believed marketing was going to be looking at dashboards all day.
Yeah.
However, unfortunately for our generation, there is this period, time lost, where marketing used to be, hey, creative ideas, strategic bets, thinking outside the box, being ahead of the curve, to being drowning in data to be able to justify marketing costs via a spreadsheet that then got into SaaSified, then got AIified, whatever, and then now you're sitting here like trying to be a dashboard expert. Long gone will those days be very soon, and that is my focus and mission is to empower the marketers to really focus on asking great questions, observing interesting organic trends, and then to be able to put those into action as soon as possible, such that the AI or the agent, in our case, Raya, is doing the data processing, understanding the hidden patterns that can be transfused into learnings, right? That is really what we want. And so, if almost put it in that way, Reed, which marketer would say no to that?
No marketer would say no to that. So, Ray, let me ask you, as you have a very powerful platform, and I mean, I love what you're doing, and along with the AI models and other autonomous tools, it does feel like, as you described this agentic model, it frees up the marketer to be a creative, almost like a high level thinker and delegator rather than heavily in the spreadsheets and the numbers. Now, as this continues to evolve, your product and others, do you think creativity itself is replaced? Is that function replaced? Is it eventually going to evolve to, like, what does it look like in a couple years, 5 years?
I find that LLMs so far are very, very good at returning the median result.
Okay.
So the truly world-class marketers are going to be amplifying their ahead of the curve ideas that have not been already reprocessed by LLMs. Just to be very clear, there's no truly original idea. Everything is a remix of a remix of a remix. That said, what I'm finding, for example, I'll give you a very clear example of this, and then we can sort of stretch this to a couple of years out. When like all these like video and generative AI came out, what we really saw was an onslaught of like a lot of people in the market started just creating direct replicas of whatever ads they were trying to do, but in a faster way, cheaper, faster, and then at times slightly better, but mostly not, is what we saw with most marketing usage of it. The top 0.1% thought about the generative AI use case very differently, where they were more like, actually, this seems truly pattern disrupting. This seems like an opportunity where, for example, in a podcast setting, we can have two dogs talk to each other in real time, almost acting very seriously. Everyone knows it's AI. Everyone thinks it's goofy. Everyone is kind of like in their minds, in their limbic system, going, "Oh, there's something off here," but this is something I want to keep looking at, right? And that's something that AI is more like not gonna be able to give you off the cuff, you know, ideas as well, right? Unless you were already the marketer that's was connecting the dots, discovering ways to pattern match. And the moment that dog in the podcast studio format gets replicated ad nauseum, the person with the creativity has already gone a step ahead, right? So that said, will we come to a point where AI will recursively get better at being creative such that it outperforms most quote unquote creative ideas? I think so, right? Like I think that that's already happening to some degree in less visually oriented formats. Like writing these days, it's starting to, I think a lot of writers are starting to get astounded by the quality of writing that Claude is able to produce compared to 18 months ago, where it was clearly, right, so AI generated. So I think there will always be pockets where us as human with our authentic approaches and our kind of less put together like desire, right, to mash things up. I think there will always be some pockets of that, because again, AI has a tendency to return what the median of the curve is embedding, and then but maybe over time there will be micro models that can also get a little bit less agreeable, right, less median. So we'll see. I think it's really hard to predict. I think like I often tell myself as a founder, I wake up every day first telling myself I don't know anything, and then secondly, I'm not convinced of anything anymore, because the world is so uncertain, and like with the rate at which AI is progressing, it's so nonlinear that as our human minds, it's hard to compute. So so all I can say is everything that I've shared with you may be valid today, but I cannot pretend to understand what's around the curve.
Yeah. Well, Ray, as you're talking, I feel like I'm in the original Matrix movie and I'm listening to Morpheus describe this new world. You can't help but think that you're about to unleash an army of neos on the world that have, more power, more ability to disrupt, with a full understanding of what's in front of them. So, I love this. I think you do a great job explaining this. I mean, your tool looks awesome. Tell us now, if people would like to work with you, work with Atria, where are the best places they can find more information?
By the way, I love the Matrix movie. I love that reference. It perhaps is the only movie I've watched like 3 times. It's just like
Oh,
that
wow.
good, right? And
Yeah.
and I, I'm not the type of, I have friends who love repeatedly watching movies, but I usually once and done. But The Matrix is truly an exception. But like, I do love the line that they say. It's like, do not try to bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, realize the truth. There is no spoon, right? There is no
Yeah.
spoon. So I feel like, yeah, I'll leave the audience with that note,
Love
because
it.
more and more the distance between perception and reality is getting
Yeah.
more and more blurred. And you can almost say perception is reality. So like, it's a really brave new world that we're entering into. For audiences that want to learn more about Atria, it's tryatria.com, tryatria.com. We've processed more than $5.3 billion in ad spend. Our goal is to help you do the work that you were meant to do, right? And then help eliminate the work that you were never meant to be doing, right? So more creative, more thinking, more, off the cuff kind of, fun, right? Ideas, less processing data, looking at dashboards, coordinating with different stakeholders. And yeah, our launch of Raya, our AI agent, is out now. So, and that's only going to get better and better. So, it was fun chatting with you. And then, of course,
Yeah.
if you want to follow me, I'm Ray Jang on LinkedIn, where occasionally I share interesting ideas, but most of the time I'm just, just chasing my curiosity.
Well, I love it, Ray. Thank you so much for coming on. This was super valuable. I know we have a short podcast, and so we only like dipped our toe in these waters, but I really appreciate you coming on, and would point anybody looking to really free up their creative high level to work with you at Atria. So thanks so much, Ray.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to MarketSurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's MarketSurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.